Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the mysterious stone spheres of Costa Rica, perfectly round and completely unexplained. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. Beginning in the early 1930s, workers clearing land in the Diquís Delta of southern Costa Rica to plant banana plantations began uncovering objects that stopped the work entirely. Enormous stone spheres, some as small as a tennis ball, others as large as a small car, almost perfectly round, scattered across the landscape with no obvious pattern or explanation. Hundreds have now been catalogued. The largest are over 2.5 meters in diameter and weigh 16 tons. They are made from granodiorite, a hard igneous rock quarried in mountains 50 kilometers away, and they are round to a degree of precision that astonishes engineers. The largest examples deviate from a true sphere by less than 2 centimeters across their full diameter. The people who made them, the Diquís culture, which flourished between 600 and 1000 AD, left no writing system, no technical records, and no surviving oral history that has been translated. Many spheres were blasted apart in the 1930s and 1940s by treasure hunters who believed gold was hidden inside. The ones that survive raise a question that no archaeologist has been able to fully answer. Why and how were they made so perfectly, and what were they for? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the wider world of ancient technological anomalies, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Out-of-place artifacts, objects found in geological or archaeological contexts that predate their supposed invention, represent one of the most contentious categories in all of science. The scientific establishment's response to such discoveries has historically fallen into two camps. The first is skeptical investigation, careful re-examination of the dating, the context, and the object itself, which often reveals a mundane explanation. The second, rarer response is acknowledgement, a formal revision of the assumed timeline in light of evidence that cannot be explained away. Both responses have legitimate roles. The history of archaeology includes many cases where enthusiastic amateur discoveries of supposedly ancient anomalies turned out to be forgeries, misidentified natural formations, or artifacts simply displaced from their original layer by post-depositional disturbance. Critical scrutiny of extraordinary claims is not closed-mindedness. It is scientific responsibility, but it must be applied consistently. The same rigorous scrutiny applied to anomalous claims must also be applied to the mainstream assumptions those claims challenge. And sometimes, when the evidence is examined honestly, the mainstream assumption is the one that breaks. The significance of genuine out-of-place artifacts goes beyond the objects themselves. Each one represents a data point in a larger argument about ancient human capability, about what our ancestors understood, what they could engineer, and how much of that knowledge has been lost. The ancient world was not populated by primitive minds in primitive bodies. The brains that looked up at the night sky 40,000 years ago were neurologically identical to ours. Given sufficient time and motivation, they could have discovered and lost almost anything we know today. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades, and patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the mysterious stone spheres of Costa Rica, perfectly round and completely unexplained, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. More than 300 stone spheres have been catalogued in the Diquís Delta region of southern Costa Rica, with additional examples found on the Isla del Caño and at other Pacific coast sites. They range from approximately 10 centimeters to 2.57 meters in diameter, representing an enormous variation in scale. All are composed of granodiorite, a hard igneous rock formed from slowly cooled magma, distinguished from surrounding rock types by its characteristic crystalline texture. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes, but as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the largest Diquís spheres are estimated to weigh approximately 16 tons and required transport from granodiorite outcrops in the Fila Costeña mountain range, approximately 50 kilometers from the primary sphere sites in the delta. No quarrying tools, transport equipment, or working debris associated with sphere manufacture has been identified at the Fila Costeña source. The transport mechanism across mountainous terrain remains unresolved and is the subject of ongoing archaeological debate. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. Archaeologist Doris Stone was the first to systematically document the Diquís spheres, publishing the initial scientific description in 1943. Associated ceramics found in stratigraphic context consistently date to between approximately 600 and 1000 AD, corresponding to the Aguas Buenas and Chiriqui cultural phases. This ceramic dating represents the best available chronological framework, as no direct method of dating the stone itself has produced a more precise manufacture date. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Costa Rican archaeologist Ifigenia Quintanilla conducted decades of field survey in the Diquís Delta, mapping original positions of spheres before they were moved and recording spatial relationships between sphere clusters and known habitation sites. Her work established that the spheres were associated with elite residential and mortuary contexts rather than agricultural or public spaces, suggesting they functioned as prestige objects tied to chiefly authority. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the pre-Columbian chiefdom settlements with stone spheres of the Diquís was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2014, recognizing the spheres as outstanding examples of pre-Columbian cultural achievement. The nomination identified 4 core archaeological sites: Finca 6, El Silencio, Batamble, and Grijalba 2, as the protected areas. UNESCO designation acknowledged both the cultural significance of the spheres and the urgency of protecting them from continued looting and unauthorized relocation. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. A substantial proportion of known Diquís stone spheres have been relocated from their original positions, primarily during the 20th century for decorative use in private gardens, public parks, government buildings, and hotels throughout Costa Rica. This displacement has permanently destroyed the spatial context most informative about the sphere's function. Quintanilla estimated that only a small fraction of documented spheres remain in their original in situ position. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the mysterious stone spheres of Costa Rica, perfectly round and completely unexplained. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that some researchers have proposed that the sphere's original spatial arrangements encoded astronomical information, functioning as horizon markers or calendar devices aligned to significant celestial events. Alignment studies conducted on spheres in original positions have produced inconclusive results, partially because most spheres have been moved and the original layout cannot be fully reconstructed. Quintanilla's mapping data provides partial positional information, but the sample is too small to confirm or disprove any astronomical hypothesis. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the dominant archaeological interpretation holds that the spheres functioned as high-status display objects associated with chiefly residences and burial mounds, signaling the wealth, authority, and organizational capacity of elite individuals buried nearby. In this reading, the difficulty of manufacturing and transporting spheres was a deliberate feature. The greater the effort required, the more powerful the political statement. This interpretation is supported by consistent association of spheres with elite mortuary contexts. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that a third hypothesis proposes the spheres served as territorial boundary markers, placed at the edges of chiefdom territories to signal political boundaries in a landscape without writing or other permanent demarcation systems. Boundary marker functions are documented for carved stone objects in other pre-Columbian cultures, and the general distribution of Diquís spheres across a politically complex landscape is broadly consistent, though the hypothesis cannot be fully tested because original positioning data is insufficient for a comprehensive spatial analysis. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the mysterious stone spheres of Costa Rica, perfectly round and completely unexplained, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes precision measurements on the largest Diquís spheres have found roundness deviations of approximately 0.2% or less, meaning that across a full diameter of 2.5 meters, the surface varies from a true sphere by less than 2 centimeters. Achieving this precision in a hard stone without modern measuring equipment requires extraordinary control of the grinding and abrasion process over an extended working period, and the method by which ancient craftsmen achieved it has not been fully explained. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented petrographic and geochemical analysis of the granodiorite composing the Diquís spheres has confirmed that the stone matches outcrops in the Fila Costeña mountain range, approximately 50 kilometers from the primary sphere sites. This identification establishes the quarry source, but does not resolve the transport question. No roads, sledge tracks, raft landings, or engineering infrastructure associated with sphere transport has been identified along the route between quarry and delta sites. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed compass measurements of sphere arrangements at sites where clusters remain in documented original positions show some orientations consistent with magnetic north. Whether this alignment is deliberate or coincidental is disputed. The number of spheres in securely original positions is small, and the statistical significance of the alignment data has been questioned by subsequent researchers. No systematic study with sufficient sample size and positional precision has definitively confirmed or ruled out intentional orientation. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the mysterious stone spheres of Costa Rica, perfectly round and completely unexplained. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The National Museum of Costa Rica in San Jose houses the largest collection of Diquís stone spheres, including several of the largest examples, and has taken a leading role in advocacy for their preservation. UNESCO inscription in 2014 increased international awareness and prompted new legal protections against sphere removal. Quintanilla's decades of fieldwork remain the most comprehensive dataset for understanding the spheres in their original archaeological context. The manufacturing method, how craftsmen achieved extraordinary roundness in a multi-ton hard stone object without metallic tools or modern measuring instruments, remains incompletely explained and is a genuine open question. Future research using ground-penetrating radar, drone photogrammetry, and residue analysis at the Fila Costeña quarry sites may clarify both the production process and the transport logistics. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the mysterious stone spheres of Costa Rica, perfectly round and completely unexplained, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of stone spheres ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.